Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. It's Allan Laboucan with the Rocks and Stocks News Show. I've got another of my In the News shows that I'm going to do for today. We've got a few companies to talk about. Before I get started on that, I'm going to talk about the US dollar. The big news yesterday was the Federal Reserve is slowing down their interest rate increases. They went from 0.75% moves on several meetings, and then in December they slowed it down to 0.5%, and yesterday they slowed it down to 0.25%. The trend is that they're getting close to the end of their interest rate increases. At the December meeting, they talked about their peak rate being somewhere around 5 to 5.5. So looks like maybe now they've got 2 quarter-point moves left in them, and then they'll stop. I think that that's inevitable. They've been very aggressive in raising interest rates. Usually the Fed would raise a couple times, wait for the data to come out. This time they wanted to be on a relentless path of raising interest rates. And that was very bullish for most of 2022 for the price of the US dollar. In fact, the traders in the US dollar got ahead of the curve by about 3 or 4 months, 4 or 5 months before they started raising interest rates. And then I think in September, they also got ahead of the trend that the Fed is going to stop raising interest rates. I think what probably gave them confidence that that would be the case is that you look at the housing sales have dropped dramatically. You look at all the major things that people buy, they're all sort of falling off a cliff. The yield curves are all pointing towards a recession with inverted yield curves. And that's what has caused this action in the US dollar, which is the 50-day moving average has fallen off a cliff. And now the 200-day is rolling over as well. And it started out with a very bad January effect, going through a death cross here in early January, and then more downside in January. And started February off on a negative note as well. And I think that all of these things combined is a good indicator that the US dollar is going to have a tough year in 2023. I think we're not too far away from after they stop raising interest rates. I think in the second half of 2023, they're going to be talking about their next rounds of quantitative easing. They've just really over tightened and not allowed the interest rate increases to sort of play themselves out into the statistics. And as they often do, the Federal Reserve tends to overshoot in either direction. And I think that they are overshooting on the interest rate increases. And that's going to cause them to have to go back into another round of quantitative easing. Debt continues to be going through the roof. The U.S., the politicians are getting into the party now where they're fighting over the debt limits. It's kind of laughable because politicians, whether you're on the left or the right, like to spend money without restrictions. And that's not going to stop anytime soon. So they obviously will raise the debt limit, but they'll probably do some harm before they do that, which I think is going to happen. All right. So then we look at gold, and gold had a very good day yesterday. It was up $26. Today it's down $14. So it's given back some of the gains from yesterday, but this trend that started in back here with a significant breakout in early November, trading well above its 50-day and 200 days since late December, gone through a golden cross in January, is now trading well above the 50-day and the 200-day. The 200-day is looking like it's ready to start trending upwards. and it looks like the 50-day moving average will stay aggressively above the 200-day moving average due to the trajectory of this move here. And I think that's very bullish for gold, silver, copper, other metals that are priced in the US dollar. Gold tends to be a leader, not just of the sentiment towards the metal space, but primarily towards the metal stocks. Where gold goes, often goes the price of metals and the price of the companies in the gold mining space and other metals as well. So I think we're going to have a pretty tremendous year for gold in 2023. Ultimately, I think it's going to go over 2,500 and could make a run towards 3,000. Wouldn't shock me. I think it's coming from a very oversold position here, and lots of reasons to believe that it's going to keep going higher. You look at the supply and demand story, there's lots of demand coming from all over the world, including the central bankers who are now buying more gold than they've ever bought in the past. Then you've also got countries, investors throughout the world that are buying it. Big institutions, I think, are getting into the party as well, because they want to hedge against the US dollar weakness and get some big moves out of the price of gold. So yeah, I'm thinking 2023 is going to be similar to the 2000. We had gold very weak. I think that's kind of how things were playing out in 2022. We had valuations of the mining companies from big to small at record lows in 2000, which we saw again in 2022. And then in 2001, we started over a decade-long bull market for gold and other metals. And I think we're into the start of another long-term bull market for gold. You know, it's not just about the demand side, it's also about the supply side. Many mines have been high graded for many years, and now the head grades for a number of years have been going down at mines. They can't find them fast enough to replace what they're mining out every year. So the fundamental and the technical story are very strong for the price of gold and other metals, that more discoveries and more new mines need to be built. Okay, so let's go into some of the stocks. We'll look at Timberline first. Timberline had news out today. I'm just going to pull up their stock chart. I think this one's very oversold, trading right around its 52-week low. They've been busy drilling at their resource to expand their resource. The big play for me on that resource is if you look at the direction of the mineralization, the direction of the rock packages, the direction of the faulting, all of those things are pointing towards this big IP anomaly that looks like the likely source of where all those gold-bearing fluids made their way up through the cracks in the earth and the different rock packages to make it into that resource that's growing quite dramatically. But they're not getting much credit for it. But I was really excited about the news that they put out today. Timberline confirms new gold silver target at the Eureka project. They announced that they identified a new high-grade gold and silver target in the New York Canyon claim block of its 100% controlled Eureka project in Nevada. They did recent mapping and sampling in the historical mining area and have identified new drill targets with outcropping high-grade gold and silver mineralization. The company's follow-up exploration will prioritize a cluster of high-grade rock chip samples around the historic Eureka Giant, and 76 mines, where results included high gold values of 55 grams, 32 grams, 23 grams, 22.5 grams, and 14.95 grams per ton. They also had high silver values, 750 grams, 582, 555, 558, 299. Those were the ones that exceeded exceeded 50 grams. Then they also had some sniffs of lead and zinc, up to 8.4% zinc, and some copper in the system as well. Now, to put things into context, what's been going on here in this part of Eureka, Nevada, is i-80 Gold has had some spectacular results from their Ruby Hill mine. On the west side of the Ruby Hill are the Archimedes pit, which was a historical oxide pit, oxide gold pit. They found a high-grade oxide zone to the west side of the pit, called their 426 zone. And just below that, they hit their Ruby Deeps discovery, which looks like a very high-grade, big bulk underground mining target. And those two would make a world-class gold discovery on their own. But then on the southern end of this pit, they found a series, three excellent zones. Two of them are CRDs, and one of them is a skarn. What makes the CRD quite interesting is that most of the time what you see in the CRD is zinc, lead, and silver. And they have those, and in fact, they have very high grades of silver, but also they have a high grades of gold, which is unusual for a CRD. So what you have here is that there's a structural corridor where that structure is associated with the right kind of rocks that kind of work as a sponge, and the gold mineralization and the CRD mineralization are following the same path through the cracks in the earth up into this near surface stuff, which is quite spectacular. If you look at the metal value of the rocks, it's off the charts for a CRD. In fact, you're looking at $1,000 to over $5,000 per ton of metals in the rocks that they've hit with their drilling. Now, also exciting is just down the road, about 2,000 meters, is the project that Paycore has. And Paycore has found the same kind of a thing. High-grade CRD with your high-grade lead, zinc, lead, and silver, and an overprint of very high-grade gold. Then you follow the path a little further down here, and Golden Lake has also found a CRD with high grades of zinc, lead, and silver, as well as an overprint to high-grade gold. And Golden Lake has done a bunch of sampling, and they found the same kind of minerals in several different spots on their claim block that suggests that they have the potential for more discoveries of high-grade CRDs with the overprint of high-grade gold. So this is a phenomenally exciting region. And then you look here, and Timberline has this big piece of ground right here, where there was historical mining of high-grade CRDs with high-grade zinc, lead, and silver, as well as high-grade gold. And this part of Nevada was really important for these CRD discoveries and mines for about 100 years. There was mining all the way from I-80's ground to Paycore's ground into Golden Lake's ground and onto in the New York Canyon claim block that's owned by Timberline. So now Timberline has gone in there, and they've done a bunch of sampling around where there was historical mining. And sure enough, they're finding that high grades that suggests that they're in the same kind of a system as all these other discoveries around here. So it's a pretty phenomenal corridor for CRD historical mining, CRD discoveries recent, and potential for more CRD discoveries in this entire corridor here, that all share the same kind of a structural corridor, same kind of rocks, and the most importantly, the same kind of mineralization. So Timberline has an excellent property there. Down here is where they have the resource that they're working on. And right in between here is where that big IP anomaly is. So, and as you can see, they've got other historical mining, the same corridor that goes from all the way up here, continues all the way down through their ground. This Eureka Trend area is one of my favorite camps in the world. And I think that there's going to be spectacular things coming out of it. There already is, and I think that will continue. And Timberline has now thrown their hat in that ring as well. And Patrick Highsmith, who's this president CEO, commented, the patented mining claims in New York Canyon were among the very first claims staked in the Eureka District in the 1860s. The outcropping high-grade silver and gold target has been unavailable for modern exploration due to the fragmented claim ownership. Now that we have consolidated and controlled these claims, we plan to drill these targets. Our recent sampling confirms historical data in the area, reflecting high-grade CRD-type silver-lead zinc mineralization and overprinting Carlin-type gold hosted in the Hanson Creek Formation. The alteration is intense along large northwest trending faults, and significant potential exists for larger volumes of mineralization in the underlying Ordovician rocks that are important host to mineralization at the Ruby Hill mine, end quote. So then you can see where they did all their sampling and very excellent widespread distribution of your silver, and down here it gives you gold and silver. Really looks like they've got something special to go along with what's happening in the area around, immediate area around them. And I'm really excited about this project along with the other ground that they have. Okay, so now I'm going to move over to Goliath. I'll pull up their chart. GOT Goliath.B. All right, so Goliath is another one that I think is very oversold. I did an interview with the management of the company recently that I highly recommend you take a look at. You can find it on my YouTube channel at Rocks and Stocks News on YouTube, or on my Substack at rocksandstocks.substack.com. What really impressed me about the interview that I did is the team, their geological team, shared their geological models from the drilling that they've done at Sherbet. And what they have is a stacked layers of lenses or zones of gold mineralization. And they also have quite an interesting network of structures that are associated with those veins or those zones, those stacked zones. And then as you come down the mountain, those structures start to come together. And it looks like the system continues to be open there. They've also got some indications of massive sulfides that looks quite interesting. I think they've got a heck of a good project, and I think their stock is very oversold here. Now here's the announcement. Goliath study confirms extensive porphyry feeder source at depth for gold, silver mineralizing fluids at the Sherbet zone. Here are some of the highlights from a study that was done at the Colorado School of Mines. And they reported, here's the highlights. The fluids responsible for the high-grade gold-silver mineralization in the Sherbet area are of magmatic origin and originate at a depth of 5 to 7 kilometers below the paleo surface. This, I think, could be start to explain why they're seeing those massive sulfides. Geological relationships and the examination of petrographic thin sections indicate that the magmatic hydrothermal fluids that form the gold mineralization were derived from one of the 50 to 55 million year old Alice arm intrusive complexes. The study identified a paragenetic sequence for the fluid pulses in the sherbet zone comprising early quartz followed by late quartz followed by sulfides. So again, you've got these zones with the gold and the silver in them, and then they've got evidence of sulfides as well, with massive sulfides. In fact, in that interview that I did with management, they showed us some of the massive sulfides, very impressive looking massive sulfides. Another highlight is that the high CO2 content of the fluid inclusions provides unequivocal evidence that the entrapment of the fluid inclusions occurred at high pressures, corresponding to a depth of 5 to 7 kilometers below the paleo surface. A maximum salinity of 7.8% NaCl was measured in selected fluid inclusions. The true salinity is likely lower and is estimated to be 3.5 to 5%. Such a salinity is consistent with the magmatic hydrothermal fluids being derived from a porphyry intrusion. The sulfide minerals formed at hydrostatic conditions through reopening of earlier formed quartz veins. Now there's a quote from Dr. Quinton Henney. He stated, and I quote, "It is great to see an explorer move a project like Gold Digger along with such unique diligence." He goes on, "Not only has Goliath met the challenge of systematically drilling the sherbet discovery over the past 2 seasons, but it is also concurrently advancing other key aspects of the project, such as metallurgy and technical studies such as this. The work that Dr. Thomas Manecki's team at the Colorado School of Mines has recently advanced portrays a very clear genetic model that sherbet originated from magmatic derived fluids, perhaps from an as yet unidentified porphyry source. This bodes well for the discovery of even more extensive mineralization in the region around sherbet at depth." End quote. And that is consistent with, you look at the lenses or the zones that these stacked layers of the zones all coming down the mountain and associated with these with the network of faulting and wide open as you keep going down the mountain. This is all pointing towards what the conclusions of this study are suggesting. And then there was a quote by Roger Rosmus, who is the founder and CEO of Goliath, and he stated, and I quote, "We are very excited with additional lines of hard evidence that show there is an extensive deep-seated feeder source directly related to the high-grade gold-silver mineralization seen at sherbet, and likely also the source of multiple new outcrops discovered along trend for over 8 kilometers and beyond the Gold Digger property. One could make a possible analogy to GT Gold's initial discovery of their Saddle South deposit, a precious metal-rich vein system that eventually led them to the discovery of their Saddle North deposit, a gold-rich copper porphyry system. All the work to date, totaling only 6 months of boots on the ground, shows we have barely begun to scratch the surface on Gold Digger and are likely seeing only the tip of the iceberg. The exceptional results to date clearly demonstrate the tremendous untapped potential on our district scale 100% controlled Gold Digger property, encompassing 57 kilometers of those red line as the snowpack and glacial abatement continues to expose vast areas of new outcrop annually that is certain to provide strong additional discovery potential." End quote. This is the zone where I went over data with their team, and you can see the sheets of gold, precious metals mineralization, and look at this massive sulfides here. Wow, that's some good looking rock right there. And this was from float, and it graded 924 grams of gold, 3,000 grams of silver, 0.05% copper, 12.59% lead, and 4.11% zinc. This looks like a very large mineralizing system. What they've already drilled out looks exceptional on its own, but then when you try to think of how big it could be when you tie it all together, whether you're looking at the zones, the direction of the zones, how they're all open and look like they could come together as they get deeper, the faulting on the system, the alteration, these sulfides, this study is all suggesting that they have a very big and powerful mineralizing system. And again, I think this one's very undervalued and has a lot of blue sky ahead of it. Okay, next company I'm going to talk about is Orogen Royalties. So Orogen Royalties is a bit of a unique royalty company in that they've generated their own organic royalties, meaning that like a prospect generator, they went out and got projects that looked like they had excellent potential. Then they brought in partners, and those partners then, in the case of Ermitaño in Sonora, Mexico, right beside Silvercrest Las Chispas, First Majestic made the discovery of the Ermitaño mine. It's a very high grade, low cost operation that's generating a lot of free cash flow. And because Orogen organically went out and got this project and then optioned it to First Majestic, Orogen Royalties has a 2% royalty on the Ermitaño mine. Then they also have another project that looks quite exceptional in Nevada called the Silicon Project. And that's in joint, they optioned that one out to Anglo Gold Ashanti, a major mining company. And Anglo Gold has went out and found the Silicon discovery that had a maiden resource of 3.4 million ounces of oxide gold. And these are the big monsters that are well-known mines in Nevada. And it looks like they've got their hands on one, and Orogen Royalties owns a 1% royalty on that. So those are their cash producing cornerstone asset at Ermitaño, and an up and coming asset that looks like it will be a future cash generating asset for Orogen Royalties. So Orogen is kind of one of these royalty companies that is just transitioning into cash flow from their royalties. But then they have a whole other group of projects that, like they did with Ermitaño and like they did with Silicon, they've gone out and acquired a bunch of good quality projects, and they brought in partners, and they keep a royalty on those projects. And what they did today was, in the news release, Orogen Royalties provides their project generation update. And they talk about the highlights. Now, this doesn't talk about their Ermitaño and their Silicon project. This is their pipeline of other projects that they hope one day turn into a Silicon or an Ermitaño. And they talked about the 2022 highlights being partner-funded exploration work of 5.6 million, including 3 drilling campaigns totaling approximately 5,000 meters, 8 option and sale agreements completed with 16 active exploration partnerships, 5 new royalties generated in Mexico, Nevada, and British Columbia, and 3 royalties acquired in Western Kenya. Income generated from the company's prospect generator business is estimated at $620,000, including gains from project sales, payments, and recoveries, net of impairment costs. 8 partner-funded drilling programs are estimated for 2023, including an expanded program at the Spring Peak project by exploration partner Headwater Gold. Patty Nickel, who's Orogen's CEO, commented, and I quote, "Orogen's project generation business continues to produce transactions focused on partner-funded exploration activity and royalty creation. Despite the challenging equity market, our junior exploration partners have spent over $5 million to advance our projects, with encouraging results coming from Nevada. Our focus in 2023 involves a greater emphasis on project acquisitions to bolster our project portfolio, and we are excited that 8 partner-funded drilling campaigns are planned," end quote. Then they go on and they talk about their exploration summary: Spring Peak epithermal target, the good results that came out of that, Lemon Lake porphyry copper target in British Columbia, with the results from that, Ghost Ranch, Carlin Gold, SI2 epithermal gold target in Nevada, Raven and Callahan, Carlin targets that are funded by Yamana, and then the rest of their projects. So basically, the company has their cornerstone assets in their Ermitaño cash flowing royalty, the potential with the Silicon project, which looks quite immense. And then they've got this pipeline of other project generators that they're going to try and turn those into future cash flowing royalties. And, you know, a lot of royalty companies talk about being organic growers of royalties. This company has done that and plans to continue in that direction. And that makes them quite unique in the business. You know, a lot of the bigger royalty companies, they will tend to just go out and buy royalties on known mines or mines that are about to go into production. These guys are kind of like a exploration royalty company, where they go out and find good exploration targets that can make discoveries and become future mines, and then they would retain their royalties on those. So this is a special royalty company. I only feature one royalty company in my reports, and it's Orogen Royalties. And I think very highly of the quality of the assets that they've already shown their ability to organically grow their royalties. I think they got something very special at Silicon. And I think that they've got the potential in their pipeline of other projects to have other Ermitaños and Silicon type assets. So this is a royalty company that's in the transition from being more about project generation and trying to find mines. And now they've got cash flow coming in and a really good future ahead of them. All righty. So that's the 3 companies that I wanted to talk about today, and give you a little rundown on the gold and the US dollar, because they are such big drivers of sentiment towards these kind of stocks. And if you can get into quality at the early stages of a start of a bull market for gold, you're going to, those good assets are the ones that are going to significantly outperform their peers. And I've been doing a lot of homework lately on companies in the news, and got a few here. I talked about a few here that had some recent good news out that I wanted to shine some light on. On that note, as always, my shows are for information purposes only. Important for you to do your homework, speak with your financial advisor before making any investment decision. And I really emphasize that do your homework part. I think it's important for you to understand the companies you're investing in, and that will make you more likely to make intelligent investment decisions. not based on the day-to-day fluctuations in the price of the stocks, which tend to make you make emotional decisions. And yeah, do your homework. I think it'll pay off, and I would advise that for any sector that you invest in. On that note, have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.